Welcome back, Free Spirits. I'm Kristen Medeiros, and today we're talking about courage, reinvention, and what can happen when life pushes you into a completely new direction. My guest today is Debbie Fay, the founder of Bespeak Presentation Solutions. Debbie is a presentations coach, consultant, and trainer who has spent nearly 20 years helping people communicate their ideas with confidence, clarity, and impact. She has coached everyone from CEOs and authors to leaders at organizations like UNICEF, along with people who simply want to overcome their fear of public speaking. But Debbie's journey into this work didn't start with a carefully mapped out business plan. It began during a difficult chapter of her life when her husband left and she suddenly found herself raising young children and trying to figure out how to rebuild. What followed was a leap of faith that turned into a 20-year career helping people find their voice. Debbie, welcome to Flying Upstream.
Thank you, Kristen. I'm thrilled to be here with you.
Awesome. Okay, let's start a little earlier in your life. So you've said that performing has been part of who you are for as long as you can remember. What were those early years like growing up with the love of being on stage?
My mother used to say that from the time I could walk and talk, if she opened the refrigerator door, I would perform for the light in the refrigerator. So that's embarrassing to say, but had a love for theater from my dad, actually. He used to put records on the record player a million years ago and sing and dance around the living room for me before he went to work in the morning. And then I would listen to those same records and I would sing and dance around the living room, and ended up at theater schools, not full time, like after school theater schools, wherever we lived. And then was in plays in junior high and high school, and really, and also when we would go visit my cousins for our vacations, those were our vacations, going to Columbus, Ohio to visit our cousins. Would walk in the door to their house and immediately put all of them to work as cast members in The Sound of Music, over and over every time. So it's been a part of me my whole life. When my children were in elementary school, I started a talent show there. I was known as the talent show lady at my children's elementary school for 7 years. Another woman and I ran that. So getting people on stage as well as being on stage has been a huge part of my life.
Amazing. And it sounds like storytelling and performance were always in your DNA. When did you first realize how much you loved being in front of people?
Ugh, I always loved being in front of people forever. What I realized probably from the time I got my cousins on stage was that equal to that, I really love getting other people on stage. I loved getting children on stage. I loved when my first husband, I used to help him with his conferences, and I begged him for years until he finally acquiesced to let me rehearse his team members before the conference when they were going to be going on stage. So my love of stage, both getting others on stage and being on it myself, have been with me my whole life.
That's amazing. And later on in life, though, you imagined a very different path for yourself. You thought you would become a high school teacher. What led you toward that direction?
Uh, in, oh gosh, when my children were young, 7, 8, and I think 12 or 11, my first husband left, essentially, and suddenly and it was unexpected, and so I was suddenly left with the prospect of being a breadwinner, which honestly we had a very traditional household, and he is in international business, so he was never home even when we were married. I was the full-time um, caregiver to our children in the house and all that. And then suddenly I was faced with having to be a breadwinner. And so my first inclination was to be a junior high or high school teacher because that's what I had gone to college for. Although before I had my children, I had only been in corporate education. So I had never been in a school system, but that seemed like the smart, safe thing for me to do, being a mom of three small kids, two of whom I still had to get on and off the bus for school, right? 5 days a week. So I thought, okay, this makes sense. All of the same vacations as my kids. I live in Connecticut, so but I went to college in Michigan, so I had to get certified to teach in the state of Connecticut, which I did, which was no mean feat. Connecticut is the second hardest state in the country in which to get certified. First is Hawaii. I learned doing this. So I got certified to teach history. I then did a long-term sub thing at a middle school in town, and then started looking for teaching jobs, and there were zero. There were no teaching jobs in my town where I live, nor were there any teaching jobs in the two towns adjacent to me, and I couldn't go further than that because I had to get little people on and off the bus. So, with that door seemingly closed, not permanently, but for the foreseeable future, I had to think about what my other career path would be. And for about a decade, I had this dream of being a public speaking coach. I had been coaching my first husband, my then husband's team members, and being the talent show lady. And it was this wild dream that I had, but like, how could I ever do it? It made no sense. I had never been in business since I had had my kids, which was 11 years, right? I didn't know anyone in business. So that seemed fantastical to start that.
Well, I so appreciate that this is sort of come full circle based on your childhood passion. You always wanted to become the public speaker or work in that world. You didn't know anyone in the business. You didn't really have a roadmap. So what made you decide to take the leap anyway?
So amazingly, there was this was in June of 2006. My father had died accidentally, and my sister and brother and I could sense that his spirit was very unsettled. And some of us believe this more than others. I would say my sister and I really strongly believe in the passing over of, spirits, and my brother not quite so much, but all of us were feeling it really strongly. Like we just were feeling my father so unsettled. So my sister had a good friend since she'd had since junior high school, who she knew connected people to people that have passed on. And so my sister and brother and I agreed that I'm the oldest, by the way, that I would be the person to connect with this woman to see if we could connect with my father, simply with the mission of saying to him, we love you. We want you to be at peace. This was our goal. Let's just do this. And so I got on this phone call with this friend of my sister's. And I think I'd emailed her and said, would you be willing to do this? She said, yes. She said, I'm warning you, these people do not always show up for us when we want to speak to them, but I'm happy to try for you. So we get on this phone call, and I start telling her, you can tell by the way I'm on this, I just start talking right away. And I start telling her, can you please tell our dad that, we love him and we want, and she says to me, well, he's here. And he's telling me that he does not want to talk to you about anything until this is this friend of my sister's, I'm going to keep her name to myself just for her own privacy, until I tell you about this presentation that I have coming up. And I said, and my father was adamant, was not talking, listening until this woman talked to me about this presentation. I said, okay, tell me about this presentation you have coming up. Keep in mind, at this point, this idea of being a presentations coach is like way up here in my mind, right? I'm still, fingers crossing that maybe there's a way I can be a teacher. So she starts telling me this story that she is about to give this big presentation about being a spirit guide to 500 people at her temple where she belongs. Huge congregation. She's really nervous about it. She's not sure that she's got the presentation structured right. She doesn't know if she's going to be telling him what she wants to tell him. So I start telling her what I think she should be doing, what the first steps are, the second steps. And then I say to her, you know what? I realize I'm telling you, giving you a lot of information right now. After this call, how about if I send you an email? I'll write all this stuff down for you so you have it in writing. She says, great, this is so helpful. Then she says to me, okay, now your father's ready to talk to you. So my father and I, through her talk, I expressed to him my heartfelt feelings of my sister and brother and I, and he kind of explains that, yeah, he felt just stupid for the way he had passed on. And I assured him that all we wanted was for him to be at peace, that we loved him. We knew how much he loved us. This woman and I hang up the phone. I sit down to write her this email, and I'm writing this email, and suddenly it occurs to me, what am I thinking? I don't have to wait years to be a high school history teacher. I should pursue being a public speaking coach. This is my dream. This is the thing I want to do. These are the gifts I've been given. And after that, I just took a deep breath and jumped. And I'm telling you, Kristen, whereas with the teaching, which by the way, I want you to know, had I ended up being a history teacher, I would have been super happy because I love young people that age. I love history. I was a terrible history student in high school in every subject. So I have great sympathy for students like that. I would have been happy. I would have been a happy person. But this was my dream. And where the teaching has been doors closed, doors closed, doors closed, from the time I started my business, it was doors opening, doors opening, doors opening.
Wow. I mean, so meant to be. That's an incredible story. And this August marks 20 years since you started your business. Congratulations. So
Thank
exciting.
you.
When you look back at those early days of networking, hustling, putting yourself out there, what surprises you the most about that journey?
That I followed my own instincts and I did it my way. And had I not done it my way, I'm not sure it would have gotten off the ground. For example, my brother-in-law, my first husband's brother, who we refer to each other, we're still very close. We're forever brother and sister, as I am with all his siblings. And he and I have a good relationship, by the way, believe it or not. We do. So let's put that to bed. He wanted me to have a business plan. If I had had to have a business plan for this business, I think I would still be trying to write it because that kind of thing is just, I had no idea, no idea. I had never planned on having my own business because I was going to have a business which would be run out of my house. So there would be no cost. I didn't need to have an office, certainly not right away, because I would be going to my clients. Or maybe I would at that point have to rent a conference space for an hour or two. I did not need a legit office in order to start my business. And I didn't have a product that I was selling. I was selling myself. So I didn't need to really sit down and figure out a lot of costs. And because of the divorce, I knew that I had a 5-year runway to before the business had to fully support me. So I knew I had 5 years to build it to a place where it would be fully self-supporting. And I went on that logic. And then to your point, Kristen, networking, I built the business joining networking groups or going to networking events. I built myself what I call a road show. I called it Great Presenters and Presentations Separating Fact from Fiction. And it was a 40-minute presentation that I would give anywhere anyone would have me. I mean, I spoke to more Rotary groups than you can imagine, because they have speakers every week. Rotaries are great places to speak, to test something out. Um, they're tough audiences because they meet every week and they have speakers every week. And that's what I did. And I just kept at it, and uh, it worked.
That's amazing. Many people say public speaking is one of their greatest fears, and you've worked with so many people helping them move past that. When someone comes to you terrified of speaking in front of others, where do you usually begin with them?
That is such a great question. It's still one of the 3 to 5 biggest fears people have. And I think a part of it is because of the cognitive science behind it. There is research that says as humans, eh, our amygdala gets activated, the thing that's at the base of our brain and our brain stem, which we've had since we crawled out of the caves, which is a really, really important part of our brain that lets us know if we're in danger. The good news about our amygdala is it figures things out really quickly. Within 30 seconds of you standing in front of a group of people with eyes on you, your amygdala figures out that you are not in danger. So there is that science that I share with people. But the truth is, there are myriads of reasons why people are nervous speakers. Um, Often they had a bad experience when they were young, or a lot of people will tell me that they had a boss that was really tough on them. If the boss thought that this person gave a bad presentation. Frankly, it can be, I've had lots of clients who are so hard on themselves. I have played armchair psychologist and said to them, I've been at this for a long time. My guess is one of your parents was pretty hard on you. And that's what it was. So there are reasons why people have this fear. Um, but from a scientific standpoint, I will let my clients know that if they focus on their message and getting the message across and ignore their heart rate, their flush neck, their shaking hands, all of that, just ignore it, ignore the inner chatter, quiet it. Their heart rate will decelerate on its own within the first few minutes they're speaking, because that's what their body wants to do. The only reason heart rates stay elevated is because we are talking to ourselves in our own heads. Instead of focusing on our message, we're in our heads saying to ourselves, oh, I hate this, I hate this, I can't believe I got talked into doing this again. Oh, I just said that was stupid, I didn't mean to say it that way, I meant it to say it this way. They can see I'm shaking, they can see I'm nervous, this is terrible, this is awful, just all that. By the way, none of it is true. Research also shows that audiences don't see your nervous mannerisms because audiences are not there for you. They're there for themselves, right? They're there to learn or to be persuaded or to be influenced in some way, to be motivated, to be inspired, whatever it is. They're not there to judge your presentation skills.
Right.
So they
So true.
don't see it. If you focus on your message, you'd be amazed. There's a bunch of things in addition to this, but that's a biggie. That's a biggie. Stop the
Yeah.
chatter, focus on the message.
I can certainly appreciate that because it's very much in line also with the concept of giving back. And when you're giving a presentation or a speech, you are there for a purpose of, as you said, to educate your audience, to persuade them, to make them laugh, whatever it may be. That is you essentially giving the audience something. And the more you focus on that, the more your body is going to fall in line and kind of cooperate. So that makes total sense.
I love that you're saying that, because one of my bespeak isms is turn your focus 180 degrees. Focus on your audience. It's all about them. And when you're doing that, to your point, that is what puts your mind in the right frame of mind. It lets your body calm down, which is what it wants to do. And then you can fully be present in truly this fantastic moment when you have the opportunity to get your message across. That's why you're there. So you want to take advantage of it. You want to enjoy it. You want to be there for it. So, and it's for exactly the reason you just said.
Yeah, absolutely. And as part of this, I know that you're also the author of a book called Nail It, which focuses on creating presentations that connect, compel, and convince. What inspired you to write that book?
Well, my mother is a published author. She's a historian. She wrote a book about Emma Lazarus, the woman who wrote the poem on the Statue of Liberty, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses." My mother fell in love with her while she was getting her PhD. My mother was getting her PhD and ended up writing a book about her. So it was an aspiration of mine to write a book, or as I like to say, I always wanted to have my own Dewey Decimal Number. And my my editor told me, the woman who edited my book told me they don't use Dewey Decimal numbers anymore. I was like, oh my
Oh,
God. Anyway, honestly, Kristen, while I was in my office waiting for the phone to ring, or when I had spare time, I would write. And I would write articles about different kinds of presentation tips and tools. And then I put together a newsletter that would go out once a month as I built up my subscribers, because every time I would give a presentation, I would put half sheets of paper on everyone's seat that gave everyone in the audience an option to invite me to speak at their business or organization, to have a free 30-minute consult, or to sign up for my newsletter, which would go out once a month. All of those articles became incorporated in the book as well, part of the book when I wrote it. And also I wanted it as a reference guide for my clients, for when I do trainings for the attendees. It's a great condensed, concise place to go to for everything that they're learning, and things that we don't learn, but that are there for them if they want.
yeah. And Debbie, this has been so eye-opening. And before we wrap up, I want to ask you one final question. If someone listening today has an idea, a message, or a passion they want to share, but they're afraid to put themselves out there, what would you want them to hear?
What I want them to know is that an idea that they want to share with others is an idea that is worth sharing. And if they build it appropriately, if they put thought into the construction of it, and to your point, Kristen, that it's a gift, it's an offering to their audience, and if they put it together with that in mind and they rehearse it out loud, they will go out and have a wonderful experience that, depending on what their subject matter is, could be life changing for the people in their audience. So they shouldn't wait. They should absolutely do it. Do not listen to anybody that's dissuading them. Don't close your ears to them, and just put one foot in front of the other and do it. You'll be so glad you did.
That's amazing. Debbie, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your story. It's so inspiring to hear how you turned a difficult chapter in your life into a career helping other people to find their voice and to be heard. Thank you. I really appreciate you being here, Debbie.
Thank you so much for having me, Kristen.